Comcast Sportsnet Phillies analyst, pre- and post-game Ricky Bottalico breaking it down with us as the Phillies moving forward here into the month of August. Ricky Bo, how you been?
Good. How you been?
Doing good, man. And late night, I know I'm sure you love those West Coast trips out there, but just 2 more left in the schedule, and you'll be all right. But you look at Zach Eflin last night, and you had some pretty strong comments after the game, which I agreed a lot with. He is struggling a little bit here. Is he in a spot where maybe he came up too soon and he wasn't ready, or he just, people are starting to figure out? What are you making of his recent struggles?
You know what? You could say other teams are starting to figure him out, but I mean the mistakes he's making are, if he was doing it down in AAA, he'd be getting beat around down there also. I mean, you cannot come up to the big league level and throw the ball up in the zone and expect to get away with pitches, and that's what I'm seeing. I mean, it's a very basic thing to say, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with his velocity. There's a little something wrong with his movement. He doesn't have as much movement as he did, we'll just say, 3 weeks ago. And his location is atrocious. I mean, if you want to pinpoint something, it's all about location at the big league level. This guy's a sinker ball pitcher. And if you watch the game last night, there wasn't much down in the zone at all. And when you're doing that as a sinker baller, because usually sinker ballers do not have the stuff, the given talent to go up there and try to get people out up in the zone. And I think that's the one thing that really stuck out to me in last night's game. The other thing is, I said location. He's walking way too many guys, giving too many free passes.
That's something young guys do, Ricky. And, we always, in this world, we want to rush everybody up. We want to see everybody. Jake Thompson struggled on Saturday night. Eflin didn't throw well his first game. Then he pitched okay. That's just to be expected, right? These young guys are going to be inconsistent. That's across the board, from Velasquez to Nola to Thompson to Eflin to Eichhoff. That's who these guys are when they're young. They're still working on stuff.
Yeah, you hate to say the word inconsistent, but that's exactly what it is. I mean, inconsistency is what comes with young ball players. You're not going to get a guy that's, there's nobody out there throwing 99 miles an hour and blowing people away on every pitch. These guys are more finesse guys. I mean, you look at what happened to Aaron Nola, same thing's happening to Eflin. Your location goes away, and then you change something maybe mechanically a little bit, and it's hard to get a good feel for it. And especially younger players, I think they get into panic modes, because when you get to the big leagues, you're like, I have to prove myself, and you feel like you're cruising along. All of a sudden, a big speed bump comes, and that's when these guys start to get in different modes of pitching, and I'm talking obviously on a pitching aspect. And I think these guys try to throw the ball a little bit harder instead of taking a step back and taking a deep breath and just saying, you know what, I got to make my pitches down the zone, and everything could work out. I mean, Eflin, not in yesterday's start, but the start before, it was the 5th inning. He had 2 strikes on a hitter. He could have been out of that inning. Instead, he ends up, I believe, he gave up 4 runs in that inning. And those are blow-up innings. Those are what you're going to see from younger guys, because they don't have the background or the history to fall back and say, look, I know I can get out of this at the big league level, because they've never been put in that spot. And, the only way to go about this is just keep pitching. And the one thing for an Eflin, for a Nola, is get the ball down in the zone. Get your ground balls. That's what they're up there for. You can't become a different pitcher when you get to the big leagues, because that's when everything kind of falls apart. And I'm not going to lie to you, everybody goes through a little something like this. I think we're seeing it more because we've seen it in a bunch of pitchers right now. We've seen guys come out with their best stuff and pitch great, and then all of a sudden kind of fall apart. And I think alarms go off, especially with the fans at that point.
Ricky Bottalico is with us. We're talking Phillies baseball. And, Ricky, you mentioned a second ago, get the ball down, get your ground balls. Vince Velasquez, he's lost his last 4 starts, even though his ERA is fairly decent. Is that a guy that tries to go for too many strikeouts still?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I think Velasquez, I mean, he's going to, because of the number he put up against the San Diego Padres early in the season. He's going to go for strikeouts, because you get labeled right away, and some guys hear that label, and if they're not striking people out in the game, then they start to think something's wrong with what they're doing. I think Velasquez I mean, you see him with a lot of 0-2, 1-2 counts. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to strike the guy out. I mean, on the third or fourth pitch, get something deceptive. Make it look like a strike. And then maybe you get that little topper ground ball, get a ground out. I think Velasquez relies a little bit too much on wanting to strike people out instead of just making a quality pitch and getting a ground ball. Everything's an out. Strikeout weighs the same as a ground out or a fly out. So, any way you can get them, I think that's the approach he should have. He still wants to strike everybody out.
Mike and I were talking earlier about the way the bullpen's currently constructed, and it's all right-handers. I mean, is that troubling to you that there isn't a single left-hander in the Phillies bullpen right now?
Well, I mean, you're talking about a guy like Brett Oberholzer, who wasn't a dominant lefty to start with. He wasn't a left-handed specialist by any stretch of the imagination. You had Elvis Araujo in there who just didn't get the job done. I think the Phillies are in a mode of who's going to come up here and just give me innings and get the job done, and that's it. I don't think they care righties, lefties. Quite frankly, I mean, when I was a setup guy, I didn't really use that lefty when I was in the setup role. I didn't get that lefty-righty combo. I was more of one of those guys who's going to go after anybody, and I think that's saying something. If they believe that their right-handers could get lefties out, I don't think that's a huge problem. I mean, I know if you're a playoff hunt team, I think it's always nice. It's a nice little safety net to have a lefty that's a dominant lefty that could just get lefties out. I think that would be great. But, I mean, does it really matter at this point for the Phillies? No, I don't think so. I think, these guys are young. Go out there, get everybody you can out.
Ricky Bottalico, Phillies pre- and post-game, a 10-10 start for the Phils against the Utleys, the Dodgers. I know you like. Yeah, right. I want to talk about the Phillies lineup real fast. I've been kind of indicating that, Ricky. I want to get your take on this. I'm not so sure the Phillies. I don't know if trust is the right word or just see Herrera as a long-term, everyday center fielder. He's starting to get pushed down the lineup. We've seen him sit a couple of days since Altherr has been here. Do you get that feeling, too, that they're not maybe 100% sold on him being a part of the future here?
Yeah, I think the one thing I'm starting to see a little bit, the first 2.5 months of the season, I thought Herrera was going up there being very selective. He was taking the walks. Now, here's what happens. He goes to the All-Star game. All of a sudden, he started slumping right after he got announced that he was going. Started going in a little slump. And I think that takes away some selectivity. And the reason being, he knows his batting average was falling. He knows he was falling way down. And what happens there is you start to press. And when you press, anything that looks good, you're going to take a cut at. And I think that's the mode that he's gotten into. That's the mode he hasn't been able to dig himself out of recently. So, I mean, I think they're trying more to do it for his benefit, not necessarily saying you can't be a leadoff hitter, but I think they're trying to say, you know what, you got to be able to get yourself out of slumps. And if you can't do that, then you're going to keep falling in the lineup. And I just think it's a learning curve for this guy. I mean, he's still young. I don't know. I sit there every night and I watch this, and I sit there and say to myself, is this a dream? Is this guy going to fall back down? I mean, let's face it, he was a Rule 5 draft 2 years ago. And you have to wonder why. And, at some point, have as much fun as you want on it. But I look at Herrera and I say to myself, well, he's not hitting lefties at all this year when you think about it. He can hit the right-handed pitchers. Is that your prototypical leadoff guy? No, probably not. And I think they see him more as a number 2 hitter. And quite frankly, at the trade deadline, I would not have been surprised if they could have traded him away.
And then possibly in the offseason, maybe he's a guy that they're hoping because of Altherr. What has he added to this team, and where do you ultimately see him settling in? Where's a good spot for him? And do you think he's an everyday player? Is he just a guy who's come up hot with not a lot of film on him?
You know what? I saw him last year, and I was very intrigued by him. I liked the way he swung the bat. He hits some home runs. He's a guy that can hit the ball in the gap. That's what I would call him, a gap-to-gap hitter. And I think he's a tremendous outfielder. So, I mean, if I was going to look at him and say where would I want him to play on next year's team, I would say center field. I really would. And that kind of goes back to you saying, you know, do the Phillies really see Herrera as a long-term answer? You know, I don't think they see anybody but Maikel Franco right now as a long-term answer. And it's odd because you love what Aaron Altherr does. You love that he's come up here, and I think he's come up with a vengeance. You know, he was the one guy in spring training that I wanted to see the full season from. I really wanted to see it because I think he's got that potential. He's not a dumb ball player, which we've seen enough of on this team, and quite frankly, I think he's refreshing to me in the sense that I watch him and you know, it's no flash. It's just go out and play the game. Obviously, I have a little problem with the flash guys, but I just think he goes out, plays the game hard, and plays the game right. And when you do that, it makes you a better ball player. And quite frankly, I think Aaron Altherr is going to be around for a while.
We're talking with Ricky Bottalico, Comcast Sportsnet pre- and post-game analyst. The Phillies, of course, in Los Angeles again tonight. You mentioned dumb players. Well, Hernandez, his base running is things that jumps right out, right? Is he part of the Phillies' future?
Yeah.
He's very frustrating because he seems like a guy you want to
pass the base,
right? You want to like this guy, but man, Pete mentioned his base running drives you nuts.
I mean, with his speed, think about how many base hits he's got on the infield. I mean, he hits a ground ball and it's a base hit. That's all because of speed.
Just a triple he hit in the ninth last night. That triple, I mean, he was flying. They were like, he might go for 3.
Yeah, he could fly. He definitely could run. I mean, he's one of the fastest players in baseball. But, I mean, if you can't use that speed to the best of your ability and the best of your mindset, you're going to have issues. And let's face it, Pete McCann's got issues with his base running. He is a guy that gets a single and either gets picked off or thrown out at second. I mean, you know, you got to be smarter than that. You have to be able to read a pitcher. That would, to me, in my eyes, if I have his speed and I get on base like he does, I mean, he doesn't walk a ton, but he gets on base enough with base hits. I mean, instead of always looking at your hitting on video, I'd be watching the pitcher's moves. I'd be watching their timing over to first base. That's how base runners get better. Ricky Henderson wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but he knew how to get a jump, and he knew how to drive pitchers crazy. You don't see that from Hernandez. Do you? I haven't seen it.
No, he has the speed, but sometimes not the execution, that's for sure. We're talking with Ricky Bottalico. You know, and Ricky Bo, we're not that far away from September call-ups, and there's certainly a bunch of names out there that fans are clamoring for. Who of the names that are out there do you want to most see as a September call-up?
I think Nick Williams. I think most people would give you the same answer. I think everybody wants to see Nick Williams. But there is an issue. I mean, these teams are doing well down in the minor leagues, and I think the Phillies, you know, they're in no rush to get these guys up to the big league level right away. I think they're more in a rush to breed winning in their minor leagues more than solo player coming up for a month and getting some at-bats. I would like to see Nick Williams come up, but I really believe that who comes up and when they come up really depends on where their teams are respectively in the playoffs in the minor leagues. Because I don't think they're going to, you know, J.P. Crawford and these guys, are they really going to bring them up if they're making a run in the playoffs? Probably not. And then you look down in Double-A, you got Cousins, you got Hoskins, these guys are raking, you got Alfaro down there. I think they're in the same boat that, you know, if they are going to get a call-up, it's going to be depending on how their ball club's doing in the postseason.
Right, and I was going to follow up on, you mentioned Nick Williams. I think a lot of people would like to see him, but you got a logjam. You got Borges going to get ready to come back. Altherr's out there.
Tonight,
Herrera out there. Ashe out there. I mean, I guess Paredes isn't a guy. There's also your colleague over at Comcast mentioned Roman Quinn might be a guy that gets a call-up.
Yeah, Jim Salisbury just mentioned that. I did hear about that. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he's hitting the ball. He's got good speed. I mean, the biggest issue, you just hit it the nail on the head, is where are these guys going to play when they come up? I mean, you're going to play Altherr. You're going to play Herrera. So that leaves one spot for what? It would be 5 guys we just mentioned. So where is the playing time going to come from? Because I mean, you could say Cody Ashley, but I think Cody is. I think they've seen enough at this point. I mean, I think Cody Ashley gets traded in the offseason.
What do the Phillies do with Borges, real quick, Ricky? In your mind, do they cut him? Do they put him on waivers? What do they do?
Oh man, I guess if he comes back, you play him for a week. If you could trade him to somebody that might need some speed and a good outfielder, I think he goes somewhere. Other than that, I mean, you're heading into September. What's the use of even cutting the guy loose at that point? I mean, you could keep him on the roster. He doesn't have to play. I mean, if somebody gets hurt, if you need a guy to run late in the game, then you use him at that point.
You wonder if next spring training, if he's still around, if they try to make him into kind of a super utility. He did play some third. Maybe they can see if he can play some first. But you're right. I don't know where his future is on this team. Ricky, I want to ask you a little bit about the future of this team moving forward. You know, this season is what it, you know, they got August and September. You'll see some call-ups, and I guess, you know, we'll like to see this season finish out. However, do you look at next year as a team that is going to be significantly different? I mean, do you think there's going to be a lot of different looks, or do you think we're looking at a lot of the same players that are here now being back again next year for more evaluation?
I think the evaluation period for most of the guys at the big league level will be up after this year. And the reason why I say that, I mean, you obviously have J.P. Crawford. You have, I forgot his first name, but Kingery is also down there, second baseman that they really like. So I think my biggest question marks are the guys on the infield that will be here next year. What is going to happen with Galvis? What is going to happen with Cesar Hernandez?
Yep.
Because at some point, those guys are not going to be starters on this team. I think everybody agrees with that. And what's the moves you're going to make? I know Kingery is well behind. He's not ready, big league ready. But, I mean, so that leaves basically if J.P. Crawford has a good spring next year and they feel comfortable bringing him up, he'll be the shortstop. So that leaves second base. And that leaves Cesar. That leaves Freddie Galvis. Do you make that move, put Galvis over to second? I mean, and then one guy becomes a utility infielder, I'm assuming. So, I mean, you know, in that aspect, I don't think the team's going to look the same as this year when April comes around next year.
No, but spring training should be very interesting. I think, you know, it will be, you know, the last couple of years, spring training's kind of been not a lot of storylines, but this one, you might see a lot of battles. And you mentioned Cousins and Hoskins. You wonder if they get a legitimate chance in spring training to win jobs, where there's going to be a lot of younger guys battling with each other, not young guys battling with outgoing veterans.
No, that's the thing about spring training coming up is that it's going to be very cutthroat, if you ask me. I think it's going to be one of those situations where people are going to go into spring training and be very uncomfortable of their position with the Phillies. And I think that's a good thing. It's a good competition. It's great for the fans, not so great for the players.
I want to get your take as a guy who played at the bigs. Obviously, Tim Tebow says he wants to play baseball. He's 29 years old, hasn't played since high school. Any shot for a guy who hasn't played in 15 years to play Major League Baseball or minor league baseball or even independent league baseball or, heck, even men's league baseball?
Somebody will sign him for the circus. That's what I think. I think somebody will sign him for the circus. I mean, maybe he could play a little bit. Who knows? But at his age, he's got to be almost big league ready at this point. I mean, and that's not easy to do. You know, Michael Jordan, Tim Tebow. Come on. You know, what are we trying to do here? Is it going to be a circus or is he for real? You know, and that's for scouts to look. I guess doesn't he have a scouting thing coming up in next week or so?
Yep.
Why does he wait till now? Why now?
Right.
It's the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, it's a bizarre story I woke up to today. I was like, you got to be kidding me. But at 20, you're right, 29 years old, you know, maybe an independent team throws him out there, but I can't imagine.
But why isn't he already on an independent team?
Good question. But I think
do you see my point?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. The independent leagues are a circus to start with. I think we all agree with that.
Yes.
And why not sign him? I mean, it wasn't it Ruben Sierra went and played in an independent league at 40-something years old?
Yeah, yep. A lot of these guys, Jose Canseco, Ricky Henderson was playing.
Ricky Henderson.
Yeah,
yep.
A lot of these guys.
You see what I mean? So why wouldn't somebody have already taken a shot at him? And he could have proven something. If he really wanted to play, he would have done that. He would have tried proving his point this summer. Now he's going to be 29 going on 30.
Maybe he just woke up yesterday and decided, you know what, I might try baseball. But I think it's a testament that just because you're a good athlete doesn't mean you can play baseball. It's not a sport for great athletes. It's a sport for something that is kind of undefined.
Yeah, you know what, undefined is a good word for baseball players because, I mean, I've seen some of the best athletes in the world play the game but not be the greatest at it.
Yeah.
I mean, Deion Sanders was a good baseball player. He wasn't great, but because of his speed, he made up for a lot of his downfalls.
Sometimes, Ricky, you could argue that being a good athlete is almost a downfall in baseball because the game is pacing. It's slow sometimes. You got to be able to change gears, and some of these great athletes only know one speed.
You know what? That's another good. Wow, you're banging out the good points because you're right on target with that. Because when you really think about it, there are guys out there. Come on. Sid Hernandez, I can remember. Look how big he was. He wasn't a great
Bartolo
athlete.
Colon.
Right, that's Exhibit A, Bartolo Colon.
Yeah, but do you see he's got a good mindset to go with the game, though?
Yeah.
See, that's the difference. Some athletes don't have the mindset to go with the game. If you could be the greatest athlete in the world and not be able to hit a baseball.
No doubt. We see these guys that come over to take batting practice all the time look completely ridiculous.
Or even throw a baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen that happen. I've been around people, that have come over to ballparks and want to take batting practice with us and throw the ball around in the outfield and stuff. And it's almost comical because in my eyes, I played different sports when I was small. So it wasn't all about baseball. It was baseball, football, basketball, hockey. I did everything. And to me, it was odd when you see a guy come over and can't throw a baseball. And I understand not being able to hit because I've seen hockey players come over and their swings are completely different. So it's hard for them to do it because they're so programmed to do their swing a different way. But, I mean, it's not the easiest thing in the world. You guys know. You guys, I'm sure, played baseball or softball somewhere along the way. It's not that easy.
I flamed out at about 14.
Well, I'm still coaching, and I try to tell these kids all the time, just because you're a great athlete doesn't mean you're going to be a great baseball player. Ricky Bo, by the way, you tell Sean Alexiak if he needs a guy to do some analysts with you. I'm available.
I'll let him know.
Ricky Bo, tonight, 10-10 start,
Good stuff,
Dodgers
buddy.
and Phillies. Thanks, Ricky.
Take it easy, guys.